A Guten Erev Shabbos from Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel. This week's Parsha we're going to read tomorrow in Shul is Parshas Pinchas. Parshas Pinchas starts out with Hashem giving Pinchas reward, and he tells Pinchas, your reward is L'chein hineni noisin loy es brisi shalom. I'm giving you the internal shalom. What does that mean? When we say somebody gets shalom, what are we talking about? What is peace? Is peace just getting along? When we say, Trump says we're going to make peace in the Middle East, we make peace between Iran, we make peace between Hezbollah. What are we talking about? What exactly does that peace mean? Is that what we're talking about? So the truth is that there are many levels of peace. Just like if you asked an Eskimo, there's 50 different words for snow. If you ask someone from Britain, there's 50 words for water. And if you ask a Jew, there's one word for shalom, but it means a bunch of things. So the Gemara in Berachos, Nun Vav Amud Beis says, Amar Rab Chanan, Shalosh Shalomos Yesh. There's three types of shalom. Shalom of Nachal, shalom of Tzipor, and shalom of Kedera. Let's go through them. The river, the bird, and the kettle. The river is the shalom where all the drops come together, become one. So this is like everybody hugging each other, everybody becoming one. We're completely combined. We lose our identity and we become one. Is not the ultimate goal. Second type is the shalom of the birds. The birds flock, they migrate. They're all individuals, but they're flying in a triangle and they're flying and they're migrating together. They're getting food together, they're sleeping together. They're a flock. Okay. Maybe that's the ultimate goal. Is that the ultimate goal, that the whole world becomes like that? Or the third option is the Kedera, where you have the fire on the bottom, the water on the top, and it's separated by a kettle. So now the heat of the fire heats up the kettle, and the kettle heats up the water, so now they could coexist. So what would you say when Shir Hashirim, the Medrash in Shir Hashirim says that Pinchas hu Eliyahu, and Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says that Pinchas will become a malach and he will be mavaser on the gula. He will tell us about the final redemption. What do we mean by that? What do we mean that Pinchas, who gets shalom, what are we talking about when it says the Maharal that the final end goal is the kedera, is the kettle? And he explains that Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, are the fire, and the nations of the world are the water. And if we put the fire and water together, who wins? The water. The water extinguishes the fire. So the Jews inside of the nations of the world, without their own identity, their own Eretz Yisrael to live in, become extinguished unless there's a kedera, unless there's a kettle. The kettle separates the Jew and allows the Jewish nation to be a light, to give warmth, and give forth their energy to the rest of the world inside of Golos. But the ultimate goal is for Bnei Yisrael to separate themselves, to pull out the good from the bad, and be able to separate themselves and move to Eretz Yisrael and be able to be a light. So ultimately, says the Maharal, that the two stages of, yes, we need to live among the Goyim at a certain point, but the ultimate goal of everything is to extract the good from the bad, and for the good to influence the bad. Now, I want to talk about this for a second. The Nesiva Shalom says that there's a difference between separating good and bad. There's a difference between annihilating bad, and there's a difference between extracting the good from the bad. If you know anything about the laws of Shabbos, you know that on Shabbos there's something called borer. You cannot take the bone out of the fish. You could take the fish out of the bone. What does that mean? Only extract good from bad. So I wanted to go a little further into this idea. We find that the only vessel that can carry shalom, it says, En kli machzik bracha ela shalom. The only vessel for us to receive God's sustenance in this world is shalom. Shalom is completion, and it also means the ability to be able to extract the good from the bad, says the Nesiva Shalom. Extracting good from bad means that everything in this world is a mixture. Since the first sin of Adam Arishon, everything in this world has a good and bad. Our job is not to eradicate bad. So with very, very few exceptions, we were supposed to be able to extract the good from the bad. And this explains the Mishnah in Idios, Perek Ches Mishnah Zayin, that the Amar Rabbi Yeshua says, Mikabel ani mi rabbi, I have a tradition from my Rebbe and his Rebbe all the way back from till Moshe Rabbeinu. She'ein Elio bo l'tamei l'tahara l'rachek l'karev. This is the first shita. Elio is not coming to be matar. He's not coming to mitame. He's not coming to l'rachek, and he's not coming to mekarev. He's not going to do any of that. And the Chachamim finish off the Mishnah and say, the ultimate goal is peace. The way the Nesiva Shalom explains this is the separation, the division. Shabbos is called Shabbos Shalom because it's a divided time. It's a separate time which is outside of the good and bad of the world. Shabbos is completely Shalom, and that's why we have 2 challahs on Shabbos. We have Lechem Mishnah, and we have 2 karbanos, and the whole idea of Shabbos is kefil, is double. And Shabbos, we make Havdalah. And Judaism is all about making separation, making division. What's good is good and what's bad is bad, and learning how to extract the good from the bad. So the final thing will be, the final ultimate goal is that Bnei Yisrael come to Eretz Yisrael, and we separate the good from the bad. And it's not that the bad ceases to exist anymore, because also before Adam Arishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, there was bad and there was good, and they were clearly defined. Our goal is to get back to that point. Our goal is to get back and to be able to identify. That's why Kedusha, by its very word, holiness, is separation. It's division. It's being able to identify, like we say so many times, when Makom sheyesh din, yesh rachamim. That means we need to identify down here in this world what is the actual thing. Now, also within ourselves, the Maharal continues and he says in a different place that there's shalom between me and Hashem, there's shalom between me and my neighbors, and there's shalom between me and myself. Now, I want to talk about the shalom between me and myself, because even though some people like to say that ultimately that's the end game, but perhaps Ben Adam L'Chavero is the end game. But even in between me and myself, how do I have peace? Is being able to identify character defects and character assets. We have our brain and we have our heart. We tie the tefillin on our arm, neged the heart, against the heart. We have tefillin on our head by the brain. And we want the Shara Psukim and the Arizal of Chaim Vital talk about the back of the neck, the Oiref being Mitzrayim, it's connecting the head to the heart. But identifying, I mean, even DBT talks about the pluralism inside of a person of good and not good, and being able to identify those things. So the ultimate goal, says the Maharal, is that a person should have a unity of identification. And actually, he says something amazing, which which is not intuitive. And he says that sinas chinam, and not getting along with people, is machlokas. And what does that mean? That's actually the concept of separating, that Avos Yisrael is complete nullification and coming towards connection to God. What does that mean? That you might think that if separation is holiness, says the Maharal, that when things are together, the Nahar, the Shalom of the Nahar, where everybody is together, that's machlokas. Machlokas is actually when everybody is united. And Shalom was when everybody is separate. Wow. That's an opposite idea. Normally you would think that Shalom is just everybody getting along, we're all holding hands, everybody's the same. That's a modern philosophy. Says the Torah that real Shalom is when there's separation. When there's a Machane Kedusha, there's a Machane Kahuna, there's a Machane Levio, and there's a Machane Yisrael. And there's a Machane for Tmeim, that also Tmeim have a place. And there's a Machane in Chutz La'aretz, also people in Chutz La'aretz have a place. But everybody has a place. I'll tell you a short story that when my father first came to Lakewood, so Reb Shneir Kotler asked him after he was learning there for a few months, how's the yeshiva? He says the yeshiva is great, but in the dining room, at that time there were a few people who were sitting and they weren't learning all day. They were more in the snack room and schmoozing. So Reb Shneir looked at my father and said, they also need a yeshiva. We need a yeshiva for everybody. Everybody has to have a place. Everybody has a yeshiva. But the chidush over here of the Maharal is, and the chidush of the Nesiva Shalom is, that everybody has a place. But the main thing is that Bnei Yisrael should realize that I'm just like on Shabbos, we could only take the good out of the bad, that everything, that our avoda is not to destroy bad. Maybe Amalek, but the goal is that not that the bad should come good, but the goal is that the good should separate from the bad. And this explains the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Perek Yud Tes, pasuk Chafei, where it says, Baruch Ami Mitzrayim. Blessed is my nation, Mitzrayim. And it finishes, Nachlasi Yisrael, my inheritance, the Jewish people. We have Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is known to represent the opposite of Judaism. It's represent all of what Mitzrayim represents, the lust, the wanting, the wealth, all of the gold that was used to create the Egel, idol worship. And yet, at the end of times, God will say, blessed is my nation, Mitzrayim. Not because Mitzrayim becomes good. There are certain things that inherently are just what they are. And when we say good and bad, we don't mean that bad in the sense that we need to destroy it. But without bad, we don't have good. It's only a relative term. So, and any person who's a Mitzri could come and be Megayer, just like could convert, just like we find by the Makas Bechoris. Even though we think that all the Bechorim died, any Bechor, any firstborn from the Mitzrim who did Milah and Karban Pesach and put it on the mashkof and put it on the doorpost was saved. So only the ones who didn't do that, meaning everybody can join. You can be on this side, and if you're on the other side, you have your 7 mitzvos. But it doesn't mean that it's ultimately bad. It just means that it serves a different purpose. The world is a stage, and Hashem has it set up that the Jewish people, us, are the fire, the warmth that fills the world with God's glory. And Shalom is ultimately when we identify and are able to have a separation as a Jewish people from Chutz La'aretz. Eretz Yisrael is the place, and the seashores of Eretz Yisrael are the Kedera. They're the kettle. May we be Zocha that this Tisha B'Av that's coming to us, we should be filled, like it says in Zechariah, that Tzayim HaChamishi, the fast, the 5th fast, Tisha B'Av, where we cried and sat on the floor and said, the great nation became like a widow. When we understand the greatness, like it says in Zechariah, that day will turn into a day of festival, of happiness, l'sasa and l'simcha. And the ultimate shalom is when everybody has their place. That's what Kedusha is. That's what Shleimus is. And when Hashem makes Shalom Bashamayim, He's organizing everything in its proper place, that nothing should be out of its place. That good shouldn't look like bad, and bad shouldn't look like good. And that's our avoda. And on this Shabbos, when Shabbos comes, we live in Shabbat Shalom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name is Shalom. The Torah's name is Shalom. Eliyahu is Shalom. Pinchas was given bris Shalom. We say Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Ashares. We bless people with Shalom. What we're referring to is the Shalom, the ultimate Shalom, where we separate on Shabbos and we say, V'loi nasati l'goya arotzos, Hashem didn't give Shabbos to other nations. And a goya, it's Gentile, who's goy shashavas chayav misa. Because it's a covenant only with Hashem. And that's why Kedusha and Shalom are the same. That Kedusha is by identifying and separating and making yourself Kadosh. And that's why the Malacha, the work that was done in the Mishkan is what Chilul Shabbos is, the 39 Malachas. 39 Malachas. May we be Zocheh the Shabbos and this Tisha B'Av, Bezat Hashem, L'sasainu L'simcha, U'Lamoyadim. Good Shabbos.